She's calling me. Guess I'll slide away. I've got to feel her touch most every day. She's warm and she's wild, calls me her child. I warm to her touch. She's my mother ocean. How I love.
Finally, we get to NOAA's marine debris program, and as mentioned in our last symposium we had, NOAA had a representative there as well, so we're honored that Kyle came. Thank you.
Oh, oh, did you vote? Well, maybe not yours, but I need other people's too. So just try another one. There's several. There's one else. Oh, that's the one. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. And to get go full screen. Here's the. What's the link? Oh, there you go.
Aloha, I got the great honor of trying to keep you folks all up before lunch, it sounds like. So hopefully I won't put anybody to sleep. I'm Kyke Koyanagi. I'm with the NOAA Marine Debris Program. I'm the Pacific Islands Marine Debris Coordinator. I'm relatively new, as you heard from Beth, to the position. So why am I standing here before you today on this Saturday afternoon where we should be eating lunch? Actually, my previous position I held, I did 13 years of marine debris surveys and removals in the Northwest Hawaiian Islands, which is now currently known as the Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument. Boy, that's a mouthful, right, for 11:30. Anyway, and also we've conducted surveys and removals in the Main. We've done assessments and removals in American Samoa after their 2009 tsunami event. And we've done a little bit of research and testing of UAS platforms, unmanned aerial surveys for remote sensing in the North Pacific. So hopefully I can give you a better, there's a lot of subject experts here, but hopefully I can give you a little bit broader perspective of the Japan Tsunami event and marine debris in general. Of course, it would be me that would have the technical difficulties, right?
How about that? I just pressed that.
Just press that. Got it. So I won't go too much into the actual event. As we all know, on March 11, 2011, Japan had their devastating tsunami event, and this more than the event itself, I want to talk about the significance of it and why it was such a big issue for a lot of the federal and state agencies that were involved. It was the first time that a foreign event as such, natural disaster as such, affected U.S. waters on that magnitude, where if we did have a tsunami event in the U.S., it would be declared an emergency situation, and your federal and state agencies and local agencies would be activated right away. Whereas in this event, we didn't have the mechanisms to address a situation as such. I think Nikolai went over a lot of how much of debris and was generated and put into the ocean and how much of it sank. So I'll just kind of move on from there.
Use the arrow now.
Oh, okay, now I can use the arrow. Okay, so what is marine debris? Thank you. What is marine debris? Marine debris has a lot of different definitions depending on who you're talking to. And what is the importance of knowing what the definition of marine debris is for the marine debris program is because of how it's described and how those agencies will be activated. So under the marine debris program, what is that? Marine debris is any solid and persistent manufactured or processed material that is intentionally or unintentionally put into the marine environment or the Great Lakes. So I guess what I'm saying is, what is the importance of that? A lot of people will call us and say, hey, what's going on with the radiation? Well, is radiation a solid or a solid persistent material? No, it's not. So our agency, the Marine Debris Program, does not deal with radiation. Locally, the radiation is monitored and by the State Department of Health, and nationally by the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. Another reason why that's important as well is, so let's say you're out fishing and you're now bored of fishing that buoy that Maximenko was talking about, and you want to report it. You're not going to report it to the Marine Debris Program because it's most likely a hazard to navigation. So that would be more betterly reported directly to the U.S. Coast Guard. So they will then know the chain of command and then tell us about it, and then we can also address it as well. But you definitely want to address the agency that it most directly affects. So you want to know what their definitions are so you know how to best address it if you are reporting it. So what is Japan Tsunami marine debris? Well, that's a great question. How does that differ from your general marine debris that you see every day? So here in this slide, you see derelict fishing gear, a lot of floats, shoes, a lot of plastic caps. I think, Sue, you've showed me a couple of these. Well, this is about a couple thousand of them. Was that some plastic bottles, lighters? I think we might even have a lot of household goods. I think there's everything that you would use in your daily life right there. Is that marine debris? Is that Japan Tsunami marine debris? Well, here we have a monitor, somebody's leftover scientific research project, some TV set tubes, some tires that you saw in some of the other slides, and some bottles and some other buoys. Is this marine debris or Japan Tsunami marine debris? All these items and a lot more are found prior to the Japan Tsunami event. So bumpers, pieces of cars, tires are pretty common actually in the Northwest Hawaiian Islands and in the Main. So how do we determine what is marine debris and Japan Tsunami marine debris? This is some of the challenges I think that you're going to find that differ between the different organizations that are reporting Japan Tsunami marine debris. Under the Marine Debris Program, we identify what we consider identification of Japan Tsunami marine debris is what was mentioned a little bit earlier, is that we get the reports, we find something on that item that can be tracked back to Japan, and then it's verified through the Japan consulate. So some of the numbers I'll be going through, like I said, may differ from some of the other numbers that you'll get from other organizations because of how they classify it. So like Nikolai was saying, this is one of the first objects that we could identify. There's the company name there. Right here is a bunch of derelict fishing gear. Can we identify that? It's pretty difficult, but sometimes we're lucky enough to get permit tags on them where we can actually track back the ships or to the company that has applied for the permit. A lot of these buoys, some of the ones that they're talking about related to the aquaculture farms and so on, these have washed up in the past. So how do we know if there's no markings, if we can track them back to the actual companies and to the event? Things like vessels, a lot of times if we're lucky enough, the vessels will actually still have the ID numbers on them or the serial numbers on the back or the company manufacturer, and we can transfer that information to the consulate and they can identify them. But source identification is very, very difficult, especially when you're talking about things like this where it's just a mass mess of things just all put together and there's no identifying markings. One of the interesting things though about derelict fishing gear in Hawaii is that some of you that are familiar with the fishing industry know that the primary fishing mechanism out here is long lining. These are all trawl seines. We rarely come across long line gear. What is that telling us? It's not local. So currently, and like I said, this is JTMD reports that were reported to us at NOAA. So could this possibly be higher? Probably, because we're talking about what was reported, not so much what wasn't reported. From our definition of confirmed, we have 41 confirmed objects where the Japan consulate has confirmed it tracking it back to the owner or to the company saying that, yes, we did lose this in the specific Japan tsunami event. Here's a couple of photos of some of the items that were positively identified. So in Hawaii itself, out of those 41 confirmations, 17 were confirmed in Hawaii. This is the last confirmed item, only of a couple of months ago from Hawaii. It was a sign that washed up in Kahuku on Oahu, and it was positively identified from the Japan consulate to come from the Tanahana village in the Iwata prefecture. And these are some of the photos from that village. So what do we do with some of the reports that come in? Well, we have NOAA modelers and we have NOAA database people that can actually take those waypoints and plot them on GIS or maps to kind of give us a good idea of the distribution of the reports, and the red triangles represent actual confirmation sites. How does it move around? Well, I think Nikolai did a really good job of telling us how it moved around, and I definitely don't want to get into any battles with Nikolai on how it moves around, as I'm not a modeler. But I will tell you this, that NOAA does have their own modelers, and we do use some of the same things that Nikolai has mentioned. I think some of the controversy in the past, though, is how those values are input into those calculations and how they move around. But basically, I would say that the concept is pretty much the same. This is some of the models that the NOAA guys kind of put together. It kind of shows the area of impact and some of the higher, denser areas. So what does marine debris do? Why are we all here, and why are we all sitting here listening to me talk? Of course, we have concerns. Some of these concerns are as following. For one, Hawaii is a tourist-based economy, so there's definitely the aesthetic value, which then drifts into the economic value. If you saw a beach like this, would you want to go and lay out on it? Probably not. Probably wouldn't feel too good. You'd probably spend your money elsewhere. Habitat destruction. A lot of times in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands when we're doing surveys, and in the main, we'll actually see an area while we're doing surveys where you see fragments of derelict fishing gear or plastics there, and you'll do your survey and you'll mow the lawn, and eventually you'll just see all these fragments, and then you'll end up with a ball kind of like this, where basically that derelict fishing gear or whatever has now done its job, entangled coral heads along the way. It's kind of been like a tumbleweed and just kind of kept tumbling until it picked up so much coral heads, or it's been biofouled so much that it actually sinks out to the bottom. And there is what some of the guys in the Northwest Hawaiian Islands do to actually help mitigate some of those derelict fishing gear problems, where they painstakingly go by freediving or scuba and actually are out there with a pocket knife, not a crane, slowly cutting away derelict fishing gear to mitigate the benthic habitat damage. Entanglements, of course, derelict fishing gear and some of this marine debris is doing exactly what it was meant to do. But unfortunately, through ghost fishing, it continues to catch and kill until it's removed from the marine environment.
Can you use the microphone?
Sure, I'll try. Some of the other things that are of concerns of marine debris is the fragmentation into microplastics. And one of the effects of that is ingestion of some of the seabirds and other marine organisms, where it eventually sometimes ending like this bird right here, and eventually passing away. Some of the other things, like I said, mentioned is hazardous navigation. That's a big concern for our in Hawaii, as all of our supplies are coming in through the shipping lanes. This is actually off of a NOAA research vessel where derelict fishing gear and lines actually entangled their prop, where they had to deploy divers, where it basically, stopped the prop from spinning. Some of the other things that were mentioned is alien species, and the potential of alien species taking a foothold here locally, catching a ride on some of this, marine debris, and actually taking a foothold here. The state of Hawaii does have an alien species, invasive species team that when reports do come in for JTMD, potential JTMD or marine debris, they go out and they inspect it to ensure that it's not carrying anything that they don't want. Human health and safety, well, of course, some of that was talked about through the microplastics, entanglements, and so on. A lot of work is still being done yet on how microplastics can be related to marine debris affects our human population. So more importantly, what's being done? The Marine Debris Program was established in 2005. And basically, their mission was to support national and international efforts to mitigate these negative effects of marine debris and derelict fishing gear. How are they doing that? So the Marine Debris Program doesn't have a fleet of ships, a mass amount of divers at their disposal. That's where coordinating, funding, research projects, and monitoring, and most importantly, which I think is part of what Carl Berg is doing here today in Surfrider, is forming partnerships and relationships. And I'll get into more of that later. Some of the highlight projects that the Marine Debris Program is doing is continuing to support Japan Tsunami marine debris efforts, continue to support marine debris and survey removal efforts like the ones I talked about in the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands and the Maine. They're doing, working on, they just released some of their standardized protocols for shoreline surveys, which Carl Berg and some of the other NGOs and private groups are working with. Continue to support marine debris research and starting a clearinghouse where there's a database of marine debris information. We are still doing a lot of testing with remote sensing, as there's a lot of what we've learned from that North Pacific mission is that there's a lot of challenges that come with it due to the characteristics of marine debris in general. A lot of it will pick up biofouling, and it'll kind of just be right at the surface or subsurface, or different sea states will have it'll be challenging for remote sensing, as in like radar and high resolution cameras, to kind of pick up the derelict fishing gear. So there's a lot of technology yet still being developed. I think the other thing is too on the research and the removal side. So the Marine Debris Program does fund through different mechanisms, research projects, removal projects, and outreach and education grants. This year, it's in review right now, and hopefully some of the NGOs and private partners that have put in competitive proposals will be notified soon of them. So if there's any of your groups that are interested in that, give me a call, and then hopefully, you can apply for some of those grants next year. So this is part of the project I worked on prior to being at the NOAA Marine Debris Program. Since 1996, the NOAA Marine Debris Program at NOAA Fisheries has been conducting surveys and removals in the Northwest Hawaiian Islands, and have now up to date removed 769 metric tons, which is 847 tons of derelict fishing gear and plastics from the Northwest Hawaiian Islands alone, through those basic, simple removal methods that I was discussing earlier. So I think the significance of the two slides I put down here is in May of 2012, 26 tons was removed from Midway alone by 9 personnel in a couple of weeks. Less than a year later, 15 more tons was removed. So that just kind of tells you of the scale that we're dealing with on marine debris accumulating in the Northwest Hawaiian Islands. A study by Oliver Dameron estimated 52 metric tons going into the monument every year. Some of the other survey and removal efforts that are supported by the Marine Debris Program is main Hawaiian Islands cleanup and surveys. Some of those are done by NGOs and private partners, just like Kauai Surfrider. So I guess some of the photos here, just to kind of show you. So this is Makapu on Oahu. This is Kaneohe Bay. And of all things, this is Hanama Bay.
When is it taken, the last one?
This last one was, so I don't know the date right offhand, but do you remember on the news when the helicopter went over Hanama Bay and spotted a mass of marine debris, and it was in the news maybe a few years ago, and basically the NOAA Marine Debris Program went out and removed some of the floats and some of the microplastics. So actually, a lot of the microplastics slides you see on the Marine Debris website is actually from Kaneohe Bay, from Hanama Bay of all things. And Nikolai, you're probably interested. This is from Witch's Brew. I can get you more information on it if you want. It was from Witch's Brew at Hanama Bay. So it's like right on the outskirt of actually Hanama Bay. It wasn't completely in the bay. So here's another program that the Marine Debris Program supports. Basically, the Hawaii Nets to Energy program. I think it was mentioned a little bit by Carl Berg and Beth. But basically, the Marine Debris Program supports the Pier 38 bin, where it allows fishermen that find derelict fishing gear or don't want fishing gear that they have anymore because it's too damaged or for whatever reason. It gives them a location where they can drop off their derelict fishing gear, or like I said, fishing gear they don't want anymore, instead of throwing it directly in the dumpster and it going to the landfills on Oahu. The Northwest Hawaiian Islands removal efforts also participate in the Hawaii Nets to Energy program, as well as a lot of the NGOs and private partners that participate in shoreline cleanups. So the special thing about this is that all this derelict fishing gear and plastic goes to one of our partners, Schnitzer Steel, which chops up this derelict fishing gear and plastics into small pieces. Now, this is a vital step in the whole procedure for us, as the incinerators at Covanta Energy out in Kapolei cannot handle these big globs of derelict fishing gear. It basically clogs up their incinerators. So without Schnitzer Steel, there would not be this whole program, and without Covanta, hence, like I said, it's all about partnerships. 100 tons of net is enough energy to produce, to power up homes, 43 homes for a whole year. So it's a great process and program. The Hawaii Nets to Energy program actually kind of sparked interest, where now there's a fishing for energy program nationally. And so it's been Hawaii was the leader in this idea, and now there's, like I said, a national program. So like I said, I did touch base a little bit about the port reception bin, and then also right now currently the Hawaii Marine Debris Action Plan is a plan by government agencies, private partners, that they all got together and made commitments to help mitigate derelict fishing gear and marine debris in the future. The Marine Debris Program is currently contacting some of the partners that participated in the past, and we're trying to revitalize that effort to get people back on board again. One of the things that happened when the Japan Tsunami event occurred, in a way, it woke up a lot of people and gave a lot of publicity on some of the bad negative effects of marine debris, but it took away from the overall effort of the Marine Debris Action Plan, as in everybody was focused on JTMD. So if anything that you get out of this whole talk that we have right here is the next thing right here. So what can you do? Some of this information can be found on the State of Hawaii DLNR website, but basically reporting. This whole thing, what can you do? NOAA can't do it alone. City and county can't do it alone. State of Hawaii can't do it alone. It's about community and buy-in from everyone. It's a community effort. I think if we walk away from just that concept today, I think we'll be way ahead of the game. So one of the things that you could do is when you see potential JTMD, always look out for your own safety first. And if there is hazards, report it to your local agencies so they can respond. After that, if you could report them to some of these websites. This is the DLNR website, and this is our NOAA Marine Debris website. Basically what that does is it adds to our reporting system to increase those numbers there, and also it sets into place that JTMD network that we talked about. So once it comes into these websites, the State of Hawaii and NOAA will activate that framework, which contacts the Coast Guard if it's a hazard to navigation and it wasn't reported to them first, or to the local agencies, or to the invasive species teams at DLNR. And so it's a great framework that's in place already. Some of the things that we want, if you send us information to these sites, is the date and time found, the location, the detailed description, and photos if you can, and of course your finder's contact information. So here's one which I think I brought because I think that this one's one of the ones from Kauai, if I'm not mistaken, Carl, where we were able to pull some of the information off the propane tank, where it gave the company's name and I think phone number, where this one was actually positively identified as coming from Japan. So things that we learned with JTMD, things that we learned with marine debris in general. Like I said, it's about the community effort and get involved. Kauai Surfrider has some great cleanup efforts. Carl sends me pictures and updates all the time, so I highly advise you to sign up for some of those. Spread the word. The more people that get educated about the issues with marine debris, the better. And yeah. So this photo was taken from one of the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands cruises. It was a 29-day cruise where about 36 metric tons was removed by 16 people, all with their bare hands and back. And I leave you with that. Thank you, Carl and Kauai Surfrider, for your invitation, and thank you guys for your guys' time on a Saturday afternoon.
Well, thank you again to everybody, as Kyle said, for your time and interest in and concern for our islands. And thank you to all of our wonderful speakers here as well, and Dr. Berg in particular for being a driving force behind this event, and all of those other people who have helped make it possible around the room. So I thank you all. We do have some time for questions, I think, but I think we're all hungry as well. So. So I'll open it up for questions for anybody. Yeah.
I just have a comment. I just want everyone to know that we do have Surfrider memberships back here. I want to urge everyone to become a member of Surfrider Foundation. And if you're not on our email, we have an email list so you can find out about all the Surfrider events. Thank you.
Okay. And also, Dr. Maximenko's cards are up here if you want to spread the word about reporting. And this is obviously videotaped as well, so there will be a way to see it again. How should we do that?
There'll be links on the Surfrider website.
Links on the Surfrider website. Excellent. Kauai.surfrider.org. Yes, question?
I was going to say, if you look up on KCC, Fukushima highlight version, you'll find
I'm sorry.
look up KCC Fukushima report.
Okay, Google on the internet, KCC Fukushima report. Or YouTube video. Okay, great. YouTube, Vimeo, KCC Fukushima report. Yes.
I guess this is for Kyle. We've had some pretty large marine debris. It's not JTD, but they're fish aggravating device buoys. And we probably had 6 of them wash ashore here. We call them TAD, not FAD. They're tourist aggregating devices. But we called the DLNR numbers, we called the Coast Guard, we called the cops, we called everybody. We watched these buoys come in. What can we do to prevent them from dragging our reefs?
Oh, God.
So
So let me answer that.
Do you want to answer it on the microphone though, so it's picked
Yeah.
up? The question was
And-
about.
Okay, the second part of my
What-
question is salvage rights.
Okay, so the question came, what can we do about these large 5-foot diameter steel balls that DLNR puts out to attract fish, which always break off and sometimes with their 100-foot long trains drag over the reef, destroying the reef and wash up on the beach. And then nobody comes to get them. So the answer to that is call Surfrider, because we now have a mechanism where we can, along with Don Heacock's help, get those things off and pick up the charges for getting them off. And then in that case, we take them to the Puhi Metal Recycling Center to dispose of.
We saw them coming from the horizon before they hit the shallow.
Nope.
How can we?
Nobody seems to be responsive on those. The thing you can do is you can call the Coast Guard and report them as a hazardous navigation, and they will then also pass them on to the chain of command. But no one's going to go out there in the ocean apparently to get them.
But you know, if we put those buoys in, not UH or DLNR, somebody would be fined.
Yeah, right. It's a real problem there that DLNR is not taking their responsibility, and the damage to the reefs as far as outweighs whatever fish attracting device they have, and the huge cost they have for putting them out there. That's something that we should start with the DLNR and the legislature on that.
And the second part of my question was about salvage rights for marine debris, or Japanese tsunami marine debris.
So the question is, what about the salvage rights on the Japanese
Are
tsunami?
these boats being taken home? We can never find them.
Some I think are. I think this is a moral question that you have, that legally you would have the rights to that thing if it washes up on your beach. But if you could identify the family that lost that, or a good example, I think, is the motorcycle that washed ashore. They were able to find it, and what happened to it? The local motorcycle clubs rebuilt it, cleaned it all up, and shipped it back to the guy who lost it, and who lost his house and I think part of his family. And so, theoretically, yes, you could claim that, but
Well, not so
we
much
don't.
morally, but repurposing. After the Indo-tsunami, people went out and harvested all that wood and rebuilt their houses, and there
That's right.
wasn't the big piles of
That's right.
stuff on
People are harvesting the wood that's being washed up on the beaches here, the great big log, beautiful Sugi pine stuff too. So, yes. Surfrider does not deal with the legal issues on that.
I think the only thing I would add to that is that when it is reported to the system and it is positively identified as JTD, I think in some of the cases, some of the items were actually wanted back by the people out there, and it wasn't so much because it had any value, as in dollar value or anything like that. A lot of it, I think, it's the symbolism of surviving and the resilience of rebuilding. So it has more of that type of value.
Yeah.
I have a question for Kyle. I'm a taxpayer, and I'm wondering how much it costs to remove and process and burn a ton of nets.
How much does it cost?
To remove, process, and burn a ton of nets.
So because there's different partners involved and some of them are private, those numbers are not easily accessible. So for let's say to go through the whole process of the removals, those marine debris removal projects that you're talking about are not funded by one NOAA organization. So the Northwest one in particular is funded by a NOAA marine debris program. It's funded by the Papahanao Mokuoka Marine National Fund. So it's small pots of money, so it's not one pot of money where one organization is funding it all. And then as for when it gets to, like I said, the Snitzer Steel and the Kawanta Energy side, the whole beauty of that is they're doing that through in-kind services. That's why like I said, we value partnerships and community buy-in, because that's what's going to make it happen. Your taxpayer dollar isn't going to be able to pay for the whole thing, or you wouldn't want it to pay for it.
So to answer that question on a local level, no taxpayer dollars are spent removing the nets and stuff and shipping it off to Snitzer Steel and burning it. That's all done on a volunteer basis by Surfrider, and a contribution from Matson Shipping Line, and a contribution from Schnitzer Steel, and then the city and county of Honolulu, who runs the H-Power.
So does the city and county benefit then from the 400?
They benefit because they get the electricity that's produced by it. Thank you very much for coming, and welcome to our program. Check out Surf.
She's calling me. Guess I'll slide away. I've got to feel her touch most every She's warm and she's wild, calls me her child. I warm to her touch. She's my mother ocean. How I love her. Often she rages. It's anticipated.